Hello CrimeCon fans, my name is Mark McClish and today I'm going to talk about how you can tell if somebody is lying using my statement analysis techniques. Statement analysis is the process of analyzing how a person phrases their statement in an effort to determine if that person is being truthful or deceptive. And the reason the techniques work is because there are several ways you can phrase a statement. People will always word their statement based on all their knowledge, which means their statement may contain information they did not intend to share. People give us more information than what they realize. Unfortunately, they sometimes give us more information than what we realize. And it all gets down to listening. So today I'm going to give you some things to listen for to help you to determine if that suspect, if that salesperson, if that politician is being truthful. And what makes me an expert on detecting deception? Well, I spent 26 years in federal law enforcement. I started off my career in 1985 with the Secret Service Uniform Division. I was assigned to protect the White House, and President Reagan was in office at that time. Good president to work for. If you're standing post and he came walking by, he would always acknowledge you. The job was strictly protection. I wanted to do investigative work, so in 1985 I switched to the U.S. Marshal Service, became a Deputy United States Marshal. Spent 24 years with the Marshal Service, 9 of those years teaching interviewing techniques at our training academy. And during this time, I did studies on deceptive language and developed the statement analysis techniques to detect deception in verbal and written statement. Now, before we get into the techniques, I have a riddle for you. There were 2 frogs sitting on a log. One decided to jump off. How many frogs are left sitting on the log? There's only a couple possible answers here, but the correct answer is 2, because the frog only decided to jump off. Now, some of you may have visualized 2 frogs sitting there, one taking a plunge, but that's not what was said. Don't interpret. You should have visualized 2 frogs sitting there, and one with that little cloud thinking about jumping off. But this is what makes the statement analysis techniques very accurate, because when we analyze a statement, we do not interpret. And that's because people mean exactly what they say. So years ago, when Marv Albert was charged with a sexual assault, he came out and said, "I intend to vigorously defend myself." Well, notice Marv Albert didn't say, "I will vigorously defend myself." He just said, "I intend to." And the word intend means I might or I might not. And he chose not to. He pled guilty. In 2016, when Hillary Clinton said, "I have tried to level with the American people," the word tried tells us she hasn't leveled with the American people. She only attempted to. So people mean exactly what they say. So when we analyze a statement, we do not interpret, but we believe what people tell us. Now, I thought about what techniques I should share with you today, and I thought a good way to do this would be take a look at a high-profile case. And the case we're going to look at today is the case of Chris Watts. And Chris Watts lived in Frederick, Colorado with his wife Shanann, his 2 young daughters Bella and Celeste. And in August of 2018, Watts came home and said he found his family was missing, so he reported their disappearance to the police. He then gave some very informal interviews to some local television stations. It consists of Watts standing in his driveway, down in his front porch, answering some of the reporters' questions. And Watts appeared to be the grieving husband, the grieving father. Continually said he wanted to see his family back. It sounded like he's being very truthful. But if we listen closely to what Watts was telling these reporters, we can see he was being deceptive. And that's what we're going to do today, is take a look at some of his statements and answers that he gave. And I think most of you know how this case turned out. It turns out he pled guilty to killing his family. But from the onset, we could see the deception was there. Now, the first video we're going to look at is Watts talking about not knowing where his family is.
Wherever they're at, I have no inclination of where they're at right now. I've exhausted every friend that I know of, and every friend that I have has called friends that Shanann has that maybe I didn't know about, and it's just it's vanished. She's not, when I got home yesterday, it was like a ghost town. She wasn't here. Kids weren't here. I have no idea where they went.
All right, there are 2 phrases I want you to focus on. And it's the phrase, "I have no inclination," and "I have no idea." Very rarely can a person honestly say, "I have no inclination," or "no idea," or "no clue." Most people have an idea or an opinion on just about everything. I have an idea and we can send astronauts to Mars. It probably won't work because I'm not a rocket scientist, but I got an idea. See, when you hear a phrase like that, that light bulb in your head should turn on, because very rarely can a person honestly say that. In fact, sometimes people will say, "I have no idea," and in the next sentence they will offer a suggestion, because the truth is they did have an idea. And they simply use that phrase to give them some time to think about what should I say. You may be with a friend, and your friend might say to you, "I have no idea." That doesn't mean your friend's being deceptive, but more than likely your friend does have an idea, they just don't want to offer an opinion. And so they use that phrase to kind of gloss over things. Now we also see that Watts used the word like. Like, I have no inclination, I have no idea like. In fact, he used it 6 times during that very short clip. And he'll use the word like a lot throughout his statements. And there are several ways you can use the word like, but a lot of times it's used to qualify something. Consider the statement, he's in a hurry. It's very easy to picture what's going on there. But some people might say he's like in a hurry. Well, what does that mean? Is he in a hurry or is he not? So the word like often weakens the statement, and Watts will use the word like quite often in his answers. We saw the same thing when it comes to using the phrase, I have no idea, with Floyd Landis, who won the Tour de France in 2006. Shortly after winning, he tested positive for a performance-enhancing drug, and he was stripped of his winnings. Landis said it was a natural thing, that he had high levels of testosterone in his system. A reporter asked him about that. A natural cause, what might that be? Like I said, I have no idea. That's why the expert's working on it. Well, there's that phrase, I have no idea. When people use that phrase, they're acting like they know absolutely nothing, which is why it's hard to believe that's a truthful statement. 4 years later, in 2010, Landis admitted that he was blood doping back in 2006. So he was lying here, and we can see his deception in his use of the phrase, I have no idea. So listen for those phrases, I have no clue, I haven't the faintest idea. Strong indication a person is withholding some information. All right, this next video clip, Watts talks about his kids and they're going to school.
Bella was going to start kindergarten next Monday, and they were just getting ready to start back again.
All right, Bella was going to start kindergarten next Monday. He refers to his daughter in the past tense. It should be Bella is supposed to start kindergarten on Monday. It's another reason why we got to find her. But he referred to her in the past tense. And this is a pretty common theme when it comes to missing persons, because missing person cases often involve a family member or a friend. And when that family member talks about the missing person in the past tense, they're telling us they know something we don't know. They know that missing person is dead. And we also see that Watts repeated the word next. And this will be a constant theme throughout his statements, where he will repeat himself. It's a slight pause to give him time to think about what to say. It's an indication that perhaps the story is not coming from memory. If it's coming from memory, it should flow very smoothly. But when Watts hesitates, it's an indication perhaps he's making up something, or he's trying to think, what should I say, what should I not say? Now Watts went on to say in that clip, and they're just getting ready to start back again. Now some people think he said, and they were getting ready to start back again, which again would be a past tense verb. I think he used the contraction there as in they are. But again, we see he repeated the pronoun they, a slight stumble in his statement. When it comes to talking about past tense verbs, we saw this with the McStay family disappearance. In 2010, Joseph McStay, his wife and 2 kids disappeared from their San Diego home. The cars found parked near the Mexican border. Speculation they walked into Mexico and didn't come back. The police interviewed Charles Chase Merritt, who was a business partner of Joseph McStay, just a couple days after they were reported disappearing. And Merritt told the police, Joseph was my best friend. Not Joseph is my best friend, we got to find him, but Joseph was my best friend. And the detectives realized he talked about Joseph in the past tense. So from the very onset of that investigation, Merritt was a prime suspect in their disappearance. Eventually, their bodies were discovered buried in the desert, and Merritt was charged and convicted of killing all 4 family members. All right, the next video we're going to look at is Watts responding to reporters' questions about how many times he tried to call his wife.
I called her 3 times, texted her about 3 times just to say, what's going on. Like because after I called her and texted her once, it's like maybe she was just busy.
All right, the first thing I want you to focus on is Watts used the number 3. I called her 3 times, texted her about 3 times. And I found that when deceptive people have to come up with a number, they will often use the number 3, or a number that begins with 3. Now, I'm not sure why this is. My theory is that a lot of nursery rhymes and fairy tales that we heard as kids use the number 3. Goldilocks and the 3 Bears, the 3 Little Pigs, 3 Blind Mice. A lot of subtle references to the number 3. Jack climbed the beanstalk 3 times. Rumpelstiltskin spun straw in the gold 3 times, gave 3 guesses at his name. And we all know if you rub that genie's magic lamp, you're going to get your 3 wishes. So it just may be that we've associated number 3 with things that we know are not true. So when we as adults have to come up with a number, we often choose a number 3 or a number that begins with 3. 3 o'clock, $300, 3 men, whatever the case might be. Now, if people don't know the exact number, they may use the number 3. So they're not being deceptive, but it's an indication that the number 3 may not be an accurate number. And that's what we see in the second sentence here when he said, I texted her about 3 times. So the word about means he's not sure if it was 3, 2, or 4. But again, most of the time when you hear the number 3, that's probably how the person's using it. They don't know the exact number, but so we can't take it as being an accurate number. But then again, maybe the person's using the number 3 because they know it's a deceptive number and they don't want to tell you the exact number. Now we also see Watts use the word just. Texted her 3 times just to say. And the word just can be used several different ways, but oftentimes when you hear the word just, it's used to minimize things. And when a person uses the word just to minimize their actions, it's an indication they may have done more than what they're telling us. And that's what Watt is doing here. He said just to say, you know. He wants us to believe the only reason he called her 3 times or texted her 3 times is to say what's going on. But at this point in time, we know based on his confession that his family's already dead. That trying to text her or call her is futile because Shanann is already deceased. So he's not calling her just to see what's going on. He's calling her to establish an alibi. And that's probably why he used the word just, because there's more going on than what he's telling us. We also see he used the phrase, you know. Now, some people have a habit of using a phrase, you know. It shows up throughout their statement. You know, you know, you know. But some people use the phrase, you know, because they want you to take for granted what they're saying is true. And in statement analysis, we take nothing for granted. We only believe what people tell us. And so Watts may be using the phrase, you know, because he wants us to take for granted what he's saying is true, but we can't take that for granted. All right, in regards to the number 3, in 2016, the Indianapolis homeowner was mistakenly shot by a police officer. His wife came home, parked her car in her driveway. As she got out of her car, a man approached her with a gun. It was a carjacking. She said she threw her car keys at the carjacker, ran to the house, told her husband what had happened. He then called 911. The husband then got his gun and he sat in the garage waiting for the police to show up. Well, when they showed up, it was getting dark outside. He came out. The police saw a man with a gun and mistook the homeowner for the carjacker and shot him. Fortunately, the homeowner did survive. The homeowner told the press, I knew the police were there after I had about 3 million spotlights in my face. Now, he knows exaggerating how many spotlights were in his face. He could have said 1 million, which would be way over the top, but because he doesn't know the exact number, 3 million is the number that he went with. So listen for that number 3. It's possible the person is lying to you, being deceptive, or it may just be they simply don't know the exact number, so they're using a number that begins with 3. All right, in this next video, Watts talks about leaving for work.
I left work early that morning, like 5:15, 5:30. So like she barely got into bed pretty much.
All right, the first word I want you to focus on is the word left. When people use the word left as a verb, it indicates they have left or withheld some information. Now, sometimes it may be crucial information, sometimes it may be insignificant information. You know, for example, Watts doesn't tell us how he got to work. Did he walk? Did he take a vehicle? Probably drove. Well, what vehicle did he take? What route did he take? What time did he get to work? Did he stop anywhere? So 99% of the time, when you hear the word left, more than likely the person has withheld some information. Now, when it comes to a suspect, sometimes this information is information that's incriminating. And again, at this point in time, based on his confession, we know that his wife and family is already deceased. And so that's information he's withholding. He hasn't told us that at this point in time. Now, we also see he repeated the word left. He also repeated the word work and repeated the word barely 3 times. So like she barely got into bed. And so that repetition indicates, again, it's not coming from memory. He's thinking about something else he's not telling us, something we want to focus on in our investigation. Did she get into bed? What happened in the bed? And I believe this is where he strangled her to death. Then he ends it by saying pretty much. Again, a qualifying phrase. It's not needed. You know, she got into bed. We can picture that. She got into bed pretty much. Well, you know, what does that mean? So again, it's just areas of deception. In an interview setting, we'd ask more follow-up questions to see, you know, what was going on. In regards to the use of the unique word left, we saw the same thing with Scott Peterson, who was convicted of killing his wife, Lacey. He said he went fishing at the marina. When he came home that morning, Lacey was gone, but the dog was there. In talking about the last time he saw her, he said, I believe it was about 9:30 that morning, the reason being that we started to watch Martha Stewart Living, while Lacey was working in the kitchen, and I left sometime during that. The police believe this is when he killed his wife, left with her body in his truck, took her down to the marina, out on his boat, and dumped her body in the ocean. But he used the word left, but again provides us very little information, very little details. And that's the key when you hear the word left, is to see how much information has the person provided after using that word. All right, the last video we're going to look at is Watts talking about the investigation. And this time I want you to listen to his video, listen to his language, and see if you can spot the deception. And I'll play the video twice for you.
There's a lot going on around here, and I really hope that all this can lead to something positive. There's a lot going on around here, and I really hope that all this can lead to something positive.
All right, can you spot the deceptive language? I want to hear from you. On your screen, use the chat window, type in your answer where you think he's being deceptive, and we'll see what you found. And after that, I will take any questions you might have.